Hi class, I'm going to create the numbers project from chapter 2 in our textbook. My chapter 2 workspace is open, so in my file menu I'm going to choose open folder, and that puts me in my chapter 2 folder, which is great. So I want to create a new folder there called numbers. And then I want to add that folder to my chapter 2 workspace. So I'll click my folder and choose add. I want to open that workspace now. I still only have my 2 project folders in there, so I'm going to choose add folder to workspace again, choose my numbers folder, add it, and now I've got it in the right workspace. So I'm going to have to get used to that, see how it works. I'm going to close out of this editor and open a new terminal window to create my new project. Now, which project or folder do I want for my new terminal? Well, my numbers project. And in my numbers project, I want to create a new console app. And I want to use, oops, I need 2 dashes there. .NET 5.0 is my framework. Okay. Now in my numbers project, I want to edit my program.cs file. And the first thing I'm going to do is add my header comments. Remember, we want to put header comments in all of our programs. You would be amazed at how many cheater McFeeders do not change the comments when they grab somebody else's code. And that's really helpful for the person that got it grabbed from, right? Because it kind of shows that they may have been innocent. So always good to put our header block of comments. The purpose for this project is going to be to explore some number types, data types. Now, whenever we first open up our project as beginners, we should do some labeling. I'm going to go to my closing curly brace, my last one, and comment that that is the end of my namespace. The one right above it, end of my class. And the one above that is the end of my main. The good old main method. So I've got those all labeled now. I know that my code that I type in needs to go within the main method at this point. So let's start out with some whole numbers. Whole numbers are things like integers that don't have decimal places. I'm going to go ahead and just type over this line of code that's here and put it a comment. We're going to declare 3 variables that store the number 2 million. It's like fun and games with integers. The int data type we're going to start out with our variable that's in decimal notation. And this is going to be 2 million. And when I put in 2 million like that, it's kind of, hard to count all the zeros. So we have a convention where we put an underscore every third position, just like we would use commas if we were not using computers. The underscores are a little easier for us to see between those digit clumps or clusters, we could say. Now let's declare an integer that's going to hold a number in binary notation. And they want it to be 2 billion. So let's see if I can do this. First of all, I have to put 0b to specify that this is a binary number. And then I'm going to do an underscore. In my first octet, or nibble, half a byte of characters is going to be 0001, 1110, 1000, 0100, 1000, and finally my last octet is 4 zeros. So if you are not up on your binary conversions, be sure to watch that video and do some practicing there. Now, hexadecimal notation is base 16. So we can fit a whole bunch of numbers into a short space with hex notation. And we're going to prefix that with the character 0x to indicate what follows is in a hexadecimal. Since hexadecimal means 16 digits, it uses the letters A through F as digits. So we'll see those letters within hex numbers. There's our hex number finished. So each of those should be 2 million, they say. Let's check it. I'm going to do a console.writeLine. And I'm going to use that interpolated string. Remember where I could put that variable name right in there. And within my variable name, I'm going to be sneaky and kind of put a comparison. Is the decimal notation variable I have equal to the binary notation variable that I have? Now, C# is going to interpret that as a question. Are those equal? If they are, I'm going to see the word true printed out. If they're not equal, I'll see the word false printed out. Let's do the same thing with our other variables. We'll put this down on the next line since we're getting a little long there. This one, we're going to compare our decimal notation to our hexadecimal notation. And again, C# will see that as a question and say, oh, you would like to compare those two values? I will write out whether the result is true or false. Let's run our program. And I'm not running the right one. Letting me fix that. We're in our numbers. .NET run. Ah, that ran the correct one. Now I got the output that I'm expecting. True, true. Now let me see if my run menu is working on the correct program. Nope, it's still using my basic variables. So I'd have to do a little bit of investigating here to figure out how I can change that within my workspace. But I will do that and report back. Let's look at a little bit more code here, and let's do some comparing of the different types of number variables. Again, we can do a lot with our console.writeLine statement. Here we want to type out some information about int. So we're going to start out the string saying int uses, and then within our parameter, we want to print out the characteristic, the size of the int type. Remember, we saw earlier that we could print out the characteristic, the name of a variable. Well, here we're printing out the size of a data type. So again, we can use special keywords to get information back from our C# system. Now, after that, I want to continue on with this string some more. So I'm going to go past my closing double quote to the next line and put a plus sign to concatenate, and then I want another interpolated string to continue on. I'm going to continue with a space and then the word bytes, and can store numbers in the range int dot min value, and then another plus sign, dollar double quote, and to int dot max value. Now let me finish up this line of code so that we can discuss it. It's quite a line, isn't it? We're starting out by writing out the string, talking about the int data type. We're going to say the int uses, and this size of will tell us how many bytes an integer takes up, an integer variable. So that's why we have our string continuing on, uses that many bytes and can store numbers, in the range, then our lowest value, and then we're going to add more, the word to, and our highest value. Now this minimum value and this maximum value, I want to make sure they're formatted properly. So I'm going to use the :N0 format specifier for those. Notice that comes right before my closing curly brace and my format specifier. This code should still be unusual to you, and you should still be having a lot of questions about it. I don't want you to worry and think that you should be understanding every little thing at this point. You should not. The more you're understanding, the better. But at this point, some of you may just be struggling to follow along and keep up with all of these special characters in specific locations of everything. That's okay. I promise it's because you're practicing that you're going to get used to it. And as you get used to it, it will become easier and begin to make more sense. So it's kind of like the best way to learn a new language is to just start using it all the time. You know, they call that immersion. You have no idea what anybody's saying at first, but all of a sudden you know what they're saying. That's what they say anyways. And you can understand what they're saying. So that's the same with code. As we work with it, we're going to be gaining an understanding in many, many different ways. So hang in there. You can do it. Now, this line of code that was a bear, I'd like to copy it. I don't want to reproduce that whole thing. So I'm going to make sure I have all 3 lines selected and copy. And then I'm going to press enter and paste. Now I have to do just a little bit of fixing. There we go. And this time, instead of using an integer, I'd like to use a double. So in the first part, instead of saying int uses, I want it to say double uses size of double. And can store numbers in the range double dot min value to double dot max value. Good, so now I've got that exact same line of code, only instead of integers, I'm using the double data type. Now I want to paste it again, so I'll press enter to open up a new line and paste, fix by backspacing. Now this third one, I want to use decimal. We've seen that the decimal number can be really large. So I'm going to make it say decimal in all of these places. Notice that because our data type is a keyword, it's being highlighted in blue in all of the places except for our string, where it's just a literal value that's being printed out by our code. Now, we should be able to run our code and see these different sizes. Let's do terminal, new terminal. Make sure I'm in my numbers program and specify .NET run. Now I see on my output, I've got my true from my first comparison of all those different number formats, and then it uses 4 bytes, and it's very upset with me about my double. Double uses bytes to store numbers in the range. It's got decimal, uses 16 bytes. Should have given me 3 complete output statements. I don't know what you got, but I'm going to continue on because I don't want to be doing a lot of debugging while we're all together here. But I'm going to continue by adding a couple of blank lines, and then we have a little teeny bit of code in the example where they want us to do a little bit more comparing. I want to do a right line, and we're going to output a nice heading using doubles. I think I'll add some underlines before that to kind of stand out to us. That's going to print out just like that in our output. So now we'll know we're getting into this code. We're going to set up a variable named A and set it equal to 0.1. And we're going to set up a variable named B and set it equal to 0.2. Now we're going to do an if statement. We haven't learned about those yet, but just kind of think about what we're doing here. And we're saying if A plus B, which should be 0.3, right, equals 0.3, yay! Let's write out a nice message. Now, we're doing our code a little bit more difficult than we might see as we get more experienced. So you will see that things are going to get easier as you get more experience. So if that is true, A plus B equals 0.3, we're going to write out this message, which is going to be 0.1 plus 0.2 equals 0.3. But what if they don't equal? We're going to put an else clause. And if they don't equal, we're going to output a different message. We're still going to start out with our variables, A and B. But now we're going to say does not equal 0.3. Let's run that. It's kind of some ugly code for all of you brand new folks. So hang on. I'm going to run it. .NET run. On top of being ugly code, it says that they don't even equal each other. Well, that's not right. Well, the problem is that it has to do with some precision when we're working with doubles. Let's try decimals. We'll say now we're having fun using decimals. Let's run this again. What's wrong with you? Where's my errors? Oh, look. It says that I'm trying to do decimal and double here in my comparison. Well, I am not. I'm just trying to do decimal values. Well, by default, when I type a literal, it's going to be interpreted as a double. If I want it to be interpreted as a decimal, I have to put a special format character after the value. So I'm going to use the M to indicate that this should be decimal, okay? So there's my M, and then in my comparison, I'm going to have to do the same thing so that that literal value is interpreted as a decimal value. Now let's try that again. Now using decimals, once we've got everything told it's a decimal, we do get an equal comparison. So you'll see that sometimes developers may prefer to use decimal because it's more accurate when comparison. They say that good practice, use int for whole numbers and double for real numbers that will be not compared to other values. Use decimal for money, CAD drawing, general engineering, and wherever the accuracy of a real number is important. So the double type has some useful special values, but a lot of times we just want it to be set up as a decimal. All right, we've already seen our workspaces. So let's close our project because we've looked around a little bit at using numeric variables. So I'm going to close this. And end our video. Thank you.